Let's see. I think we're live. Hello, everyone. Welcome to session 2 of Prep for Wave Week. Just going to check that everything's working on your end. But if you hear us, if you see us, please comment. Okay, we are live on Facebook. Hello, hello.
Hello.
I'm just going to share this to our group. Okay. Hi, everyone. Okay, we are shared. We're good to go. Welcome, Tom.
Hi.
If you all don't know who Tom Carpenter is, you're in for a treat. We are both travel advisors, but Tom has an extra hat that he wears, and he is also, what is the right word, lawyer or attorney, or are they interchangeable?
They're interchangeable. It's the same
Okay.
thing.
All right. And Tom, you helped me so much last year. And then even earlier this year, putting contracts and agreements. I feel like everybody needs to know about this conversation if you didn't already know about this conversation. So I know that how you got into being in travel. You first started in the entertainment industry and kind of segued in. So can you give us like a brief bio update on how that happened and what you do for advisors?
Sure. So first of all, I am not driving the car. I am just in a car.
Yes.
So, but the amazing thing about I think what we've all learned over the last year is that we can really do our jobs from anywhere. And so
Mhm.
I'm doing my job from a moving vehicle right now. um,
Yay.
so I was a lawyer, a labor and employment attorney for many years in the entertainment industry, and I really uh, was passionate about travel. So I started a travel business because my husband and I wanted to do something entrepreneurial, and we were both really passionate about travel. So we decided to see what it would take to start a business. So
Mhm.
we found a good host agency, which we love. Signed up with them, went through the mentoring program that they offered, and did a soft launch on Facebook, and we got our first clients within 2 hours, and it was a family of four going to the Galapagos, and so we were off to the races. And
Nice.
really, and when our travel business really started to take off, I was also getting really burnt out at my job, so I quit my full time law job on Broadway to set up a small travel business. Set up a small solo law practice, and um, and when I was and thinking that I was going to, in my law practice, maybe from time to time review employment contracts for performers and journalists, which is what I'd been doing before,
Mhm.
uh, and then. Other travel businesses started coming to me because it turns out that there aren't that many attorneys who represent small businesses and also really understand how the travel and tourism industries work.
Right.
So I kind of tripped and fell into a niche. There are like 6 or 7 other people who do this work. We all know each other. They're all really excellent. So if uh, but I participate in the ASTA attorney referral program, and since I'm a small business owner myself, I'm mindful of the fact that people don't have unlimited resources to just throw at legal stuff.
Mhm.
But that having been said, travel is more complicated than ever,
Right.
and selling travel is more complicated than ever. So, with so much legal risk that exists in the industry, um, there are all sorts of things that can go sideways when you're selling travel. But the good news is that there's a solution to all of those problems. So all of that risk can be managed in some way, shape, or form. So
Right.
and and so I feel like I'm actually really helping people when I help them put together documents and policies, and
Oh yeah.
talk through issues. So
Oh yeah, and that I will like be so forthcoming in that last year was my 10th year in business, and the 10th year is when I decided to put contracts and agreements in place. So you can too fix any mess that may have come along. And
Yeah.
that's why we have Tom here. So like I had mentioned before we came on, my favorite question from our podcast episode was, what things are travel advisors still doing wrong in the world of contracts and agreements?
And I'm still surprised at. Well, you were saying that it took you 10 years to get around to putting in place a good solid terms and conditions document and those types of things. I feel like uh, I'm still really surprised at people who have very successful, very mature businesses who, for whatever reason, just haven't really gotten around to putting a comprehensive terms and conditions document together, and then
Mm,
also thinking through the workflow piece of it, because workflow is so your workflow is almost as important as what's in your terms and conditions document. So
right.
when I draft terms and conditions documents for people, I don't sell templates, I don't do cookie cutter. I mean, I draft them from scratch because every business is going to be different. So if you're doing a lot of school groups, you're going to need different terms than somebody who is maybe doing a lot of adventure travel. And so
Hmm.
every business is slightly different. That having been said, there's a lot of boilerplate that's the same across the board. But really, I think what the key component of that is having all those terms and conditions doesn't really do you any good if your clients aren't actually signing on to it in some way, shape, or form.
Hmm.
And you want to make it easy for your clients to agree to your terms. You don't want to rub their nose in a bunch of legal stuff. You don't want to be um, you know, alienating them, and so to that end, I think, and this is another thing that I think some people struggle with, is making an investment in a good technology tool that's going to make it easy for your clients to work with you and
Right.
easy for you to take the steps you need to. So, like, I use TravelJoy in my business, but
Yeah.
I know other people use Test. Some people use Dubsado.
Hmm.
Some people use Vacation CRM. I mean, there are all sorts of things that are out there. There are even some free tools out there. But I think making that investment, that's another thing that I think some people are hesitant to do that, but consider it a cost of doing business, and it really will help you protect yourself.
Right. No, I agree, and that's in the study hall session that we had after the last session. That's part of what we were talking about, is that okay, the discussion for per se the fee happens, what happens after there, and there's a certain workflow. When we say workflow, it's a step or a process that you have that leads to a certain thing. So the certain
Right.
thing would be collecting your planning fee, or however you'd like to call it. They
Hmm.
need to sign some sort of an agreement electronically, and then you need to be able to accept the money. So
Right.
that's the certain step and process. And these different CRM or e-sign or platforms are kind of
Hmm.
like what help you make things easier, instead of you having to be like, okay, here's the form, please sign it, scan it back to me. It just,
Right.
these programs just make everything easier and make you look a lot slicker as a travel advisor too.
Right. And the thing about a DocuSign or an electronic signature, those are just as valid as wet ink on paper. So if you've got
Okay.
a tool that allows you to collect a signature that way, that's great. But a lot of people don't realize that you don't necessarily need a signature to get somebody to agree to your terms and conditions. So checking a box and returning a form, a little box that says, "I'm hiring you to plan my trip, and I agree to your terms and conditions, which are located at www dot wherever you've put it," or a Dropbox file or a Google Doc. If you're looking for something that's if you don't have the ability to put it on your website, checking that box and returning the form is perfectly valid, unless there is a waiver of legal rights that's in your terms. So if your terms and conditions have a waiver, so that's one reason that I don't recommend that people put like photo releases in there. If you do a lot of come with me trips,
Okay.
sometimes people say, I want something in there that says I can use their pictures for marketing. Well, people have a legal right uh, they own their image, they own their likeness, and so if you're
Um,
asking them to waive their right so that you can use their image for commercial purposes. That's a waiver, and you would need a signature for that. So I think that it's easier to just check a box and return a form rather than having something that's signed, even if it's a DocuSign. But
Mhm.
that's just my personal preference. But you can do it a couple of different ways. There are lots of good answers that are just as legitimate.
Okay. And that you bring up another really great point because it's not all like terms and conditions when we need to go see someone like yourself. So you mentioned something about like a waiver if
Oh, I think.
marketing purposes. So how would you go about that? And what are some of these extra, I guess, agreements that need to be had that travel advisors don't normally think about? Because that for me is not something that I immediately think about, that I need somebody's waiver to use them in marketing things.
Yeah. So for if you're so I don't even know that you need a waiver necessarily. I mean, if you're going to use your client's vacation photos to promote your business, I think that's the kind of thing where if you've got a relationship with the client, just ask them if they're okay with it, and if they say
Okay.
yes, great. And if they say no, well, you're not going to use it if they're not okay with it, or if they change their mind later and say, hey, actually, I've changed my hair and I don't like the way it looks in that picture. Do you mind taking it down? Of course, you're going to take it down because you don't
Mhm.
want to alienate your clients. But the other things that people tend to come to me for, I get a lot of people coming to me for website documents, so like a website terms of use or
Mhm.
a website privacy policy, also advertising disclosure policy. So a lot of people don't really think about the fact that if you've got like a blog on your website, the Federal Trade Commission regulates bloggers. And so if there is a product or a service that you're endorsing on your blog, the federal government requires you to disclose that there's a material relationship between you and the company that you're
Ah.
promoting. So if you write a blog post about I just came back from my Virgin Voyages trip, and it's a brand new cruise line, and I'm really excited about it. Blah blah blah. Well, you also get a commission from Virgin Voyages, so you're going to want to have some sort of policy that um, discloses that you have a material relationship with that company. Other
Oh.
people are monetizing their website. So there's a product out there called Imadri that will curate a packing list, and then it has affiliate links in it where people can click on that and you get a share of the, like if somebody buys that travel jacket that you were put on their packing list through the
Mhm.
link, you might get a share of that commission, that sort of thing. Those are all commercial um, commercial enterprises that if you're monetizing your website that way, you
Okay.
have to be aware of that. Other things that I do a lot of independent contractor agreements for people if they're bringing on sub agents.
Mhm.
That is really tricky because there are different standards for independent contractor. What constitutes an independent contractor state by state. Even at the federal level, there's a different definition of independent contractor at the IRS compared to the Department of Labor, and so and there are
Oh.
penalties for getting it wrong. So you really want to make sure that you're doing that correctly. I've been doing a lot
Okay.
of virtual assistant agreements for people too lately, and then group leader contracts. So if you've got
Yes.
if you've got a celebrity chef or a podcaster or the owner of a yoga studio, and you're putting together a group for them, you're going to want an agreement with them that's going to talk about how they're going to market the trip, whether you're going to share the profit from that and how that's going to work, how many cabins do they have to sell before they get a free berth, because you might do that differently than the cruise line's doing it if you've budgeted it out differently.
Mhm.
Um, and there's a new trend that's happening lately where I've had a couple of different clients who are partnering with other agencies to do either full or partial charters.
Okay.
Um, so like hypothetically speaking, it's a European river cruise, and you're going to partner with two other agencies to try to do a partial charter, and you're going to want an agreement with those other agencies that talks about how are you going to divide up the profits? What are what are each agency's obligations? If one of them doesn't sell enough cabins, what's uh,
Mm,
how are you gonna treat all of that? So so that's like a new trend that's been coming up lately. But um,
okay.
uh, I also put together LLCs for people. I can do that in
That's
every state.
important.
Something that I wasn't doing early on, but I've started doing that because I'm working with a service that I can trust, that I know they'll do it the right way. So
Okay. Cool. Because then, kind of like the other thing, I know a lot of people are kind of I feel like so I started out always having errors and emissions insurance,
mhm,
kind of like as the protector. So
yeah.
what is the difference between just having insurance versus having agreements? And so like what are the differences and how do they work together or can they work together?
Yeah, so I recommend that everybody have. I mean, I think everybody should have errors and omissions insurance, and I mean, because I can't disclose client confidences, but I will tell you that I've talked to a couple of agents in the past year who had really horrible things happen in their business, and they didn't have errors and omissions insurance, and it was devastating for them. But errors and omissions insurance is really for um, a mistake that you might make. So it's like simple human error happens,
Hmm.
and if you mess things up, you booked the airline tickets for June 1st instead of July 1st, and your client shows up at the airport and there's no flight for them. Well, that's a mistake, and the best terms and conditions um, are not going to protect you in a situation like that, but
Okay.
your errors and omissions insurance will. So I recommend that people have at least $1 million in coverage, even for the smallest businesses. I think that's a really good starting place.
Hmm.
And truthfully, the price difference between 500,000 and $1 million it's not significant. I think it was like the last time I looked at it for a client, it was like $8 a year more to have a
Okay.
million in coverage. So, and even if you're a hosted advisor and your business has a host agency that has errors and omissions insurance, I have a
Hmm.
strong view that you should have your own policy, because if you have a host agency that has E&O coverage that includes you, you are going to share that policy with all of the other advisors that are hosted by your host agency. And if one of
Yes.
them files a claim and that sucks up all the limits of coverage, then there's not going to be a lot left to protect your business. So having your own policy is key. Most host agencies are going to ask you to add them as an additional insured, so
Hmm.
that they are also covered by your policy if you're using their credentials to book travel. There's nothing nefarious about that. It just means that if they get sued because of something that you do,
Hmm.
that they can avail themselves of that policy as well. So it would be it's a best practice. I would not think anything of it if that's a requirement that your host agency has. So
Okay.
yeah, so that's my take on E&O.
Okay. Cool, cool, good. So kind of going into wave season, if travel advisors had nothing else, what are the basic contracts or agreements that they need to have going into wave season next year?
Yeah, so I think every business needs a terms and conditions document, and I
Hmm.
think every business needs a good solid workflow. Those are the two things that are key. But especially with respect to wave season, um, you know, th- every cruise line has a slightly different safety protocol for COVID. I've been sailing on taking a lot of fam trips because they're available now,
Yeah,
and so in the
same.
past couple of months, I've sailed on Crystal, I've sailed on Holland, I've sailed on Virgin Voyages, and I'm thinking about a couple of other ones, but my experience has been very different on all of those. And so having a baseline terms and conditions for your business that's in addition to the supplier terms and conditions is going to help you, because a lot of the things that are in your terms and conditions are going to be kind of shifting the responsibility of things from you to your clients, giving them advisories so that they can't say, you never told me X, Y, and Z. So things like vaccinations. It used to be that we needed a vaccination, if yellow fever vaccine, if you're going on a safari or whatever it
Hmm.
is. Well, now that we need COVID vaccines, but not only COVID vaccines, we also need health screenings. So if you need a health screening in order to come home, so you can take care of that in your terms and conditions document, to put something in there that says that it is the traveler's responsibility to know what they need. I mean, of course, you're going to be helpful. You're going to try to direct them to the best information,
Right.
but ultimately, it's you can't get the shot for them. They have to get the shot, right? So
Hmm.
putting them on notice that it's their responsibility to take care of what they need to take care of. Risks of travel. There's a provision that I put in almost every in every terms and conditions document, that the traveler understands that there are always going to be risks when they travel, that
Hmm.
insurance is a good idea, travel insurance is a good idea. All of those things, when travel is more complicated than ever before,
Right.
having a good solid terms document is also important.
Okay. And for anybody that is watching us, if you have any questions, please go ahead, pop them in the comment box while we have still a little bit more time. I know that a lot of people, like when they think of contracts and agreements, they're probably like, oh my gosh, this is like something else to add to my plate, which is why they should work with someone like yourself. How long does it take between like, hey, Tom, versus here you go, everything's ready? How long does that usually take?
Yeah, it doesn't take long. So my standard well, so I'm actually going to go into it. Before I get too far into this, I should say that this presentation might be viewed as attorney advertising by the states where I'm licensed. And
Mhm.
so just making that disclosure out of the way. This is not intended to be specific legal advice. I should have done this at the front end of the thing. But at any rate, um, I do terms and conditions documents on a flat rate for people, because I know that people need to manage their expenses. My current flat rate varies depending on. I have discount arrangements with ASTA. I have discount arrangements with a couple of host agencies that I've partnered with. But
Mhm.
even at my standard flat rate, I mean, it's basically the commission of one one cruise line booking. uh,
Right.
that's roughly what it would be to do your terms and conditions, give you a template client agreement, that sort of thing.
Mhm.
So it's not expensive if you want to get it taken care of. But in terms of the process, the way I've done it is if I always do a complimentary consultation with somebody, because I always want to find um, I always want to find out, make sure that I can actually help somebody. So I do a complimentary consult. Then we put a representation agreement in place, which
Okay.
I usually can get to you within 24 hours of our complimentary consult. As soon as I get the letter of engagement returned to me, I use a questionnaire to
Mhm.
get the basic information that I need in order to do a terms and conditions
Yeah.
document. And so from there, that'll give me enough information to do a good solid first draft. And then, uh, and then, and then usually when I get the responses back from the questionnaire, it's probably another 24 hours before I can get a first draft to you. And then it's just a matter of when can we set up a time to go over the whole thing point by point. So, I mean, we can get it done in a week or two easily.
Okay.
It's not too time consuming.
Oh, that's
Um,
good. Here,
and
a comment just came up, but we think you answered it. For a contract with a sale with me celebrity, what very general budget should I keep in mind?
um, a budget for drawing up a contract. Uh,
Mhm.
so, I mean, I've done a lot of those for people, and I think the last one that I did, it was maybe 2 hours of billable time to get the first draft together.
Okay.
When I draft those agreements for people, um, um, I try to give you a template that you could use over and over again.
Mhm.
So I tend to like put all of the things that can vary at the back of the agreement in an appendix or an exhibit or something like that, so that if you want to use the contract again, you don't have to go into the meat of the agreement and like figure out
Nice.
where to replace things. You just go to the back and replace the things that are going to vary. So
Oh, nice. That's awesome.
and that way you don't have to like pay a lawyer, you know,
Okay.
a few $100s to draft a new contract each and every time. So
Right. Perfect. Rirette, we're going to answer your questions soon. At the end, I'll give you some contact information. I'm going to pop up Aaron's question.
hi,
What
Aaron.
should I keep in mind for my business should something happen to me, not able to work for an extended period, death, God forbid, since I'm a one-stop person, well, I'm a one-person shop with a host agency?
Right. Yeah, so succession plans are really important. I would recommend that you. Well, I was saying this earlier that they're for people who want to sell their businesses or get out of the industry. It used to be that there was a standard way to do a valuation on a business and kind of figure out what it was worth and find a buyer and all of that. But since we've had COVID, like everything's up in the air right now. So, I've had lots of people reaching out to me about doing a transaction to transfer their business. But but I would recommend that you look for somebody else in your host agency who you have an affinity with. If you're on the same page, your businesses look similar, and come up with a plan that if you're incapacitated, that within the host agency, having them be able to pick up your slack. You can also kind of build a partnership with another agency so that maybe you're covering for each other when you're traveling. I know in my host agency there are lots of agencies that back each other up, and so if a client has a problem and their travel advisor isn't available, there's somebody at another agent. They're not going to steal each other's clients. They're going to really back each other up. But that could also really help out if you have like an extended need to be absent from your business because of medical reasons or personal situation or whatever it is. But I would go through. I mean, one of the benefits of being with a host agency is, they're all of the bookings are under their credentials, and so they can. I would say whatever your plan is, make sure that they are in the loop for what you want to have happen, because they're going to be getting all the inquiries from suppliers. What about this booking? Hey, payments due. And they're going to need to know what you want to have done with that. So I would definitely check with that.
Awesome. And then Rirette's question was, how do we contact you? So I'm going to go ahead, pop up your email address. So that is Tom's direct email address. What are some of the things that you can help out with? I think we covered this in the beginning, but like, what's a good overview again?
Yeah, so I can if you haven't incorporated as an LLC, I can help with that. I can help with website terms of use, website privacy policy, advertising disclosure policies, terms and conditions, and client agreements are the thing that I do the most for people, and I do that on a flat rate because it helps keep the cost down. Group contracts, I do a lot of those. Independent contractor agreements, I do a lot of those. Selling or transferring a business, I can help with that.
Thinking about like organizational setup, if someone is ready to move from an LLC to, I think it's like the S corp, is that something that you do, or is that accounting?
Yeah, you would want to. I mean, so an S corp is really a tax treatment.
Okay.
So there you can have an LLC that is treated as an S corporation for tax purposes. I have a client that is set up that way. It's relatively uncommon,
Okay.
but personally, I think an LLC is really the sweet spot because you get protection for your personal assets from liability, as well as you only get taxed once. In corporations, you pay double tax. You pay tax, and then your corporate entity pays tax. But
Okay.
if you're a sole proprietor, you don't have protection from liability for your personal assets. If you're a corporation, you get taxed twice,
Hmm.
but LLC is really kind of the sweet spot for most people because you only get taxed once, and your personal assets are generally protected from liability. So
Awesome. Awesome. Well, I'm just getting a comment. Thank you very, very much. Thank you so much, everybody, for tuning in. Thank you so much, Tom, for being here and sharing with us some of your wisdom in something that can be very scary for many of us.
I mean, like I said at the top of the, if people are just joining, there's a lot of risk in selling travel, but the good news is all of those problems have solutions. You can manage all of that risk. So peace of mind is, I don't really draft documents. What I really do is give people peace of mind, I think. So.
Yes, yes. And it's not only that because I'll do a little pitch here. It's not only that you do that, but like in my situation, I had a scare earlier this year. I can be like, Tom, help. What am I supposed to do right now? So that is also very helpful. It's kind of like once you get in Tom's world, you're there. You're there. It's like a friend for life.
Well, I have some of the best clients that anyone could ever ask for. So I'm very happy to work with people like you, Rita, and it's been my pleasure to not only represent you but also to develop a friendship with you over the years. So thanks for that
Likewise.
opportunity.
Likewise. Thank you so much. Have a safe road trip. Good luck on
Thank you.
meeting your new furry friend.
Yeah,
And
I hope they
everybody,
have a
thank you so
dog.
much.
Okay.
I will see you if you have purchased a study hall pass. I will see you in about 5 minutes in our private Zoom room. So have a great day. We'll see you back here tomorrow, 12 p.m. Eastern, for our next session. Bye, everyone.
Thank you. Bye bye.